I'm Michael Moreci, and this is the Filmographers podcast, a show where we study a director's entire career, one movie at a time. We're in the middle of our second season exploring the life and work of Billy Wilder. But today, we're taking a break so we can look at the latest low-budget horror release, It Ends. Rejoining me on this existential road to nowhere is Keir Graff. Keir, welcome back, man.
It's good to be back, and big thanks to producer Kevin for stepping in to cover for me the last two review episodes while I was on vacation. Even though it's a hard truth to learn that you're replaceable, I did enjoy listening, and I thought Kevin did a terrific job.
He did. Kevin is a versatile man, but you are not replaceable. Kevin was the suitor knocking at your door, but like Odysseus,
I returned.
You returned. You got your bow ready.
Got my bow. I pluck it, and magically it sounds like a harp.
Yeah, and there's trouble, man. Listeners, please hit that subscribe button and leave us a rating or review. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and leave us a comment. We're always happy to hear from you. Now, Keir, before we dive into our review of It Ends, we have to discuss some news. Soderbergh's back.
To be fair, he never really leaves. Even when he ostensibly retired, he still found time to script and shoot an entire streaming series.
This is true. So maybe he's not back, but he's here with something new. Two new things. His Jaws app chronicling the making of one of his favorite movies. And yes, you heard me right. It is an app. Not a book, as once promised, but an app, and it's called Production 02074.
That is so quintessentially Soderbergh. Apparently he doesn't want anyone to find it. I mean, he could have just called it the Jaws app, but no.
Yeah, for God's sake, Steve. Call it the Jaws app. What are we doing here?
The Jaws deep dive. Come on.
Just Jaws in the title.
Shooting Jaws.
Well, it's called that because that was Universal's production idea. Well, as we all know.
Naturally.
There's the internal production idea. I know them of every movie. But still. Now, we are going to dedicate an entire episode to this massive thing just as soon as we can make our way through it. And I was wondering why it's an app and not a book, as Soderbergh originally promised, and friend of the show, Daniel Kraus, has a theory.
Friend of the show, who just so happens to have a new movie coming out, a little film called Whale Fall, on October 16th. Daniel wrote the script, and it's based on his own best-selling novel. The trailer is available online, and it is pretty amazing.
I'm very excited for Whale Fall, and we'll surely be discussing it plenty when it's released. Now, as for Daniel's Soderbergh theory, it's a good one, and I agree with it. Basically, Daniel posits that had Soderbergh put all the material he put in the app into a book, it would create an absolutely mammoth coffee table tome. It would be huge and color, just unwieldy, and it would cost hundreds of dollars to purchase. We're talking, we're just looking at like a Taschen purchase per year, it would be a specialty item. Yeah,
I'd buy that. I mean, I wouldn't buy the book, but because that would be too expensive. But I agree with Daniel's thinking. This way, Soderbergh won't have to compromise his vision, which apparently, from what we hear, is completist to the point of being obsessive. He has thrown in every detail he was able to acquire about the making of this landmark movie. Anything else, by the look of things, just wouldn't do. So this way, he keeps it affordable. The app will cost you $24.99, which, for those keeping score at home, is at least $100 cheaper than Taschen's The Shining book.
And like I said, we're going to explore Soderbergh's app fully and report back. But for now, let's talk about the other big things Soderbergh is bringing to us this year. Keir, what are we getting?
This is the year, Mike. After years of teasing us, Soderbergh is sticking to his promise and is at last releasing a boxed set of his movies. This is according to his newsletter, which you can subscribe to at extension765.com. The letter says the discs are being pressed and they are, quote, maybe getting close. So I guess it's not for sure, but he's still talking about it and it feels imminent.
And this box set, for those who don't know, contains remastered and or re-edited versions of Kafka, Schizopolis, Full Frontal, his two Spalding Gray documentaries, Bubble, which Keir and I both love, and The Girlfriend Experience.
It will also contain Mr. Neff, his silent cut of Kafka, and that is the one I know we're both really, really looking forward to.
Let's cross our fingers, Keir, and hope 2026 is the year of the Soderbergh box set. Now,
I know what I'm putting on my Christmas list.
You might end up with a empty stocking because I don't truly believe it's going to happen.
Oh, it's going to happen, Mike. It's going to happen.
The Kubrick box set and the Soderbergh box set. What a year. Now, let's talk about It Ends. The movie was written and directed by Alex Ullom. It debuted at 2025 South by Southwest and received very strong reviews, but it lingered in distribution limbo for quite a while. It was released briefly on Letterboxd's rental service. It has since been removed before being gobbled up for distribution by Neon. It follows on the heels of the wave of success from other young horror directors, Kane Parsons with Backrooms and Curry Parker with Obsession, and hopes to achieve a similar type of success.
And it was made, apparently, for just $50,000 or thereabouts, a remarkably small budget for a film that looks the way it does, especially when you consider that it's getting a theatrical release.
It stars Akira Jackson as Day, Noah Toth as Fisher, Phineas Yoon as James, and Mitchell Cole as Tyler. Before we get started, I want to point out that our discussion will be as light on spoilers as possible, but we're going to have a spoiler-filled discussion that will be exclusive to our Patreon members. You can find that and us and all of our episodes at patreon.com/the Filmographers podcast. That discussion will be tacked on to the end of this episode.
Not yet a member of our Patreon community? That is easy to fix. Visit Patreon right now to support us for a small monthly fee. You choose the amount, and then you'll have unlimited access to everything we offer, like special monthly episodes recorded only for you.
Keir, to start things off, I want to ask you a question. We're seeing a real movement in this liminal horror space, and I find it really fascinating. It Ends, Backrooms, and also Exit 8, a film I reviewed earlier this year and really enjoyed. Well, liminal space isn't anything new. David Lynch did it for years. But there's something interesting going on about this idea of being trapped in existential purgatory or, something thereabout. So, Keir, I want to ask you, you have these young filmmakers, people whose formative years were spent trapped indoors in, existential purgatory because of COVID. Are these liminal space movies, when we look back, going to be considered the quintessential COVID films?
Yes.
Done.
I mean, I sure think so. And not only because they're more artistically durable than the shot on Zoom movies made during the COVID lockdown, interesting as some of those were, they seem to capture not only this feeling of isolation and boredom and confusion as to what's outside and what's really going on, but also the economic helplessness the younger generation is feeling. And we can go into this in some more detail, but to me, it's so fascinating because it's like, pre-COVID, we were coming off a long, long run of like end of the world movies, everything being destroyed and leveled. And of course, that's still a durable genre, but this is more nuanced. This is more interesting. It's like the world's still here, but it's just kind of shitty and we're kind of stuck and we can't make progress. We can't find our way.
Yeah, I saw an interview with Alex Ullom, who I really came to respect and appreciate. And he mentions a few really cool things, and one of which being that, like, it feels like the world now that we live in, and I think this is a product of, not only COVID, but like various political factors, is in a transitional period. Like, we're waiting for the next era to begin, and we're just kind of stuck where we are now. And I think there's a really good point to that. I think he's really tapping into something profound in a lot of ways. And we'll talk about that in the movie. Specific to the movie, like, to me, in terms of COVID and just generally, but specifically to the COVID point, it feels like an anti-coming of age movies. Like in coming of age movies, those stories are generally about discovering yourself at a young age, typically, and feeling like anything is possible. Like a coming of age movie typically ends with the protagonist jumping in a car and driving off, and Robin Williams says, "That son of a bitch sold my line," But like it's like we're going off into an unknown and exciting future.
Yes.
But this movie, it ends is a different time of your life, your early 20s. You're just out of college, probably. You're broke. You have nowhere to live. You have no job. You have no money. This movie is about capturing the time of your life when nothing is possible. Like all the characters in It Ends were trapped before the movie began. And I wish that we gave us a little bit more of that, but they were trapped, we see, by depression, soulless jobs, bad relationships, things like that. None of them feel hopeful about the future, a condition common to people of that age. I certainly felt that way when I was in my early to mid 20s, but their situation is exacerbated by their experience during COVID and this oppressive, everlasting feeling of dread of being trapped and unable to escape.
One of the things that I thought about in reflecting on this movie was, so I'm Gen X, and I was fortunate to be in a generation where I got out of college and I felt like, despite my utter lack of qualifications to do anything great with my life, I still felt like, man, I'm going to go have adventures and do stuff. Like I felt relatively optimistic. Yes, bad things were going on then as they are now, but it certainly wasn't quite as dire. And I was thinking about like kind of the quintessential Gen X movie might be like Linklater's Slacker, which shows people who are going nowhere, but it's more of an act of resistance, as like we're not opting into the rat race. Whereas I almost feel like today's generation, and I think that this movie kind of touches on that, wishes they could get in on the rat race. Right? Because like the rat race, you could go somewhere and you could gain something, and maybe then you can afford a freaking house, which is something that, certainly the younger generation, is rightfully obsessed with. Like the fact that they, are still, stuck living with their parents. They can't pay their college loans. I mean, the economy is crushing a lot of the younger folks. And so we have a very different kind of movie. Slacker, it's all cool, man. You're just hanging around, Austin being a weirdo, and you have got your weird obsessions, and that's fine. There's, you've kind of dropped out of society in a 1960s way, but it's not really pejorative. It's kind of like, look how interesting this is. Whereas this is very different.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And, you hit the nail on the head because Ullom said that Slacker was a big inspiration on this film. And I see it to a degree that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, there is a generational again, it's like a transitional generation because I'm Gen X as well. And the generation we were damn the man, and the generation after us really loved the man, and now this next generation is caught in between like where we would just kind of drop out of society and just be weirdos, and we can afford it and live in a crummy apartment because apartments didn't cost $2,000 a month, then it was like $300, so like they're unable to really do that. So they're not able to like live like us and just drop out and be, weirdos with weird obsessions and do whatever. And I don't think they want to embrace, the man, quote unquote, the way that the generation after us did. So they're also stuck and they're also trapped. But I think there is something to be said. And Ullom also said this about how it ends. It's like, we're leaving out the aspect of social media, which we didn't have, we didn't have to deal with. And he said it ends as kind of like going through what their lives are. It's just an endless scroll. It's just an end. The road is an endless road. It's an endless scroll and it goes nowhere. And, what is the point to any of this? And I was like, man, I've been, gone on to social media now and use it, but like, it hasn't impacted my life the way, like I didn't grow up with it. It wasn't part of my, nations, wasn't part of my youth, and so I think he's got some interesting things on his mind. And I think you're right. Slacker is like a perfect movie to look at how it inspires and it's parallel to It Ends, but how it's also really, really different, and in some interesting ways, which kind of lead to why It Ends and this generation is the way that they are, So that said, Keir, what did you think of the movie and did you enjoy it?
I did. I liked it. I think that it's so fascinating because well, let's see. I'd say I like it, but with caveats. Like it did remind me of Exit 8 very much. as you said, or almost Exit 8 meets The Long Walk, although Exit 8 is better and The Long Walk isn't nearly as good. I think Ullom does an effective job of establishing the characters early through their dialogue. And when we learn their predicament, it's genuinely creepy and then scary. But the initial terror is really a head fake, and he pivots to something that's much different from a traditional horror film. This is not a film about terror. It's about existential dread, which is much harder to pull off. I thought it was a very good movie, but not a great one. I thought Ullom genuinely did a good job of keeping us interested in the characters in a confined space, in a setting that threatens to become tiresome and repetitive. He changes things just subtly enough and just often enough to keep us interested. But the longer the movie went on, the more I found myself wondering if the message was really as simple as I perceived it to be. And I wished for more nuance, more surprise. It does fit very well with Exit 8 and Backrooms, although I found both of those richer and more fascinating to ponder. To me, instead of building toward an ending of like mystification and wonder, as Backrooms does, and Exit 8 certainly has it, just riveting, absolutely riveting movie. I felt like it ends kind of petered out, which may be exactly what Ullom was intending artistically, but I was craving something bigger or more of a wallop, just something more. The post-film conversations with this, for me, were not as intense as they were after Exit 8 and Backrooms. Now, I do absolutely applaud this effort. I think it's a brilliant concept for a low-budget movie. It's very well executed, and it's a very promising debut.
Yeah, no, well, interesting. Keir, for those who are filmographer heads and listen to all our stuff, we've been disagreeing a bit, and not that we're fully disagreeing because you say you like the movie, but I really loved it. I really, really love this movie. I am really, really impressed by Ullom on a technical level. I think that shooting a movie in a single location, as I did with Revealer, like in a way we kind of break out of it. But like when you have a limited space, I think oftentimes audiences don't consider how challenging that is and how hard it is to make it continuously fresh and visually interesting. And I think that he does a lot of good stuff with the camera. A lot of cool stuff. He does you were speaking of Jaws, earlier. He does the zoom dolly move, which I was like, hey, cool, man. Like, the visual vocabulary, and I really applaud that. I'm like, hey, I like when young filmmakers, because it's very typical. I hear this all the time from friends who are younger than me. Kevin Lau will tell you, our producer, that like, he talks to a lot of people who are film students and filmmakers who haven't seen a movie before 2010, 2005, and to say, hey, I'm going to reference Jaws. I say that to me tells me that you're a serious filmmaker who wants to continue the tradition, and break it as well. Doesn't mean you have to be doing the exact same thing, but also to like carve out your own path, which I think he's doing here. So visually, I think he does a lot of interesting things within the car. They start drawing on it. They're drawing on the windows. He uses different perspectives. Like he's doing a lot of really interesting things on a technical level with clearly a very limited means, very, very limited means, not just space, but just like cost, what it requires to make a movie on $50,000 is a remarkable feat. So technically, I think he's got some serious chops, and I really liked it. And I think the movie has got a lot on its mind, about this road to nowhere. Asks interesting questions and doesn't have a lot of answers. And I don't know that it's supposed to, but like, is suffering the point? Is nothing the point? Is everything the point? And I think it flirts with these ideas, and I love the central character. And his determination, and we'll talk about the ending in our spoiler discussion later, but his determination to keep going, to feel that he has this need that there's an answer. And his friends, which I thought was, I'll be frank, if we're gonna have like a talk about generational differences, I was appalled by his friends' decision to, I won't say how, but like basically end his journey. The absolute moral self-righteousness that would take to do that. To believe so thoroughly that they're right. It feels like such a generation, like that's like the Twitter, like I am here and I'm morally, saying I am right, and I'm forcing it upon everybody else, where they could have just said, hey man, we're done. we're going, good luck.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know,
now I share your feelings on that moment in the film for sure.
Yeah, they kind of turned into villains for me at a moment. I was like, how dare you, make this decision for him, But I loved his quest. I loved that he had to bottle up all of his emotions because he couldn't have any catharsis without knowing what he was feeling cathartic about. He's constantly trying to figure things out and approach it like a puzzle. And we all kind of fall in that trap. And I think especially during COVID and post-COVID, to really force us to think about, what does it fall for? What does it all mean? What are we really doing with our time here? And I think it was really profound. I think you're right. I think it could have gone deeper. I think he could add some clarity. From what I understand, he had a lot more hangout scenes that were, for one reason or another, forcibly cut. I know he reshot a little bit of it. I'm not endorsing the movie to be longer, but I do wonder if he could have leaned more into the philosophical thing, because you're right, the horror is a head fake. Like, it's not a horror movie.
Yeah.
We'll call it a horror movie. It has some scares and it has some suspense. That's true. Hard to call it a horror movie, but it feels like he had to kind of paste that genre onto this idea to make it work. And I think that's kind of unfortunate, because I think it could have been a lot more if he followed his better instincts, which I think was the strongest parts of the movie, were him and his lead character, all the characters, trying to figure things out and wonder what it is, this thing that we call life, and how we spend our time doing it.
It's an interesting question. I mean, I almost wonder if he could have gotten the film into wide release had he not had the horror elements, because it almost feels like now, like, to make a movie as an independent filmmaker, to get recognized, it's almost, you have to make a horror film now. It's so, everything is horror right now. And it's not a horror film. I mean, I whatever I call it, existential horror or something. And I do think that is accurate, but it's not a horror film that people are going to, people who are going to the theater on a Saturday night expecting to get some good jump scares and throw their popcorn and be freaked out. I'd be sorely disappointed by this. This is a movie for thinking and reflecting. I mean, we could talk more about the kind of, I feel like I might give some spoilers inadvertently if we talk too much about the horror / non-horror aspects of it. But yeah, I agree. Like, I liked a lot of things about it. I'm not knocking it. I wanted, and it was interesting. It was a very tight, 89-minute film. It actually felt a little longer just because it was because of the confined space and because of the nature of them being on the road, driving. That actually kind of felt like it added 5 or 10 minutes of psychic length. So I don't know that I wanted it much longer, but yeah, I wanted a little deeper. I wanted a little weirder. I thought the characters' dynamics, as I said, during the beginning were really good, and then throughout they were good. And I agree with you that, like, visually, he did an amazing job with what he had. I agree with that 100%. But to me, it almost felt like, as far as the plot, and it's very difficult because you've got 4 actors in a confined space, and there's kind of only, once you've created this premise where they're on this road to nowhere, there's only kind of one thing you can do, which is to start subtracting them. And I wanted more, and maybe this is just me responding to what I wanted, which is not the right way to review a film, but I just wanted more mindfuckery or more weirdness or more bigger. But it is true that Phineas Yoon, who plays James, the guy who, with the most stoic, the most persistent, the guy who wants to keep driving, it's a very interior performance. He's at first he's open and he's very empathetic because he's the one guy who tries to solve the problem and keep talking, but he doesn't really have a peer in terms of working things out. And so he kind of draws inward. And it's such an enclosed performance that it's difficult to do as a young actor without lots of chops. Like, at times I wanted more. I admire what the director's going for, and I admire a lot of things about the film, but I was more interested in it than I was in love with it.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the movie. I appreciate Steven Spielberg's Duel, for example. I don't love the movie, but you watch it and you're like, man, this guy can make a movie. And I feel like that I watched It Ends, and I feel like Ullom can make a movie. I'll be frank. I didn't see that in Curry Barker. I did not see this as somebody who can make a movie in Obsession. Like I saw, just did not understand the visual language of filmmaking. And I said that in the review as well. Parsons was good, Backrooms works. But I think that I honestly think Ullom's the strongest. I think Ullom's the strongest of the three. And I see the seeds of a really promising filmmaker, and I really like that. But you're right. I do wish, and maybe this is just the mainstream appeal, because this is where you get to the slacker, because I think it's caught in between. And this is the one thing that holds it back a little for me, because it's caught in between, like, hey, let's just make a hangout movie, an existential hangout movie with a cool hook. And that's that on one hand. And then let's make a genre horror movie on one hand, Yeah. And I feel like it's better. The former is better, the existential hangout movie. And I think they could have probably done a little more with that. But if you wanted to make the horror movie, you probably need to do a lot more than that. And it needed another surprise, I think, somewhere in there. I don't think it needed an explanation. I don't want an explanation.
Yeah.
But I think it needed, like you said, to seem to like being bigger. I think it needed a little bit more of a surprise to kind of, shake us off a little bit and take the movie, give the movie a little bit jolt around the, second act mark. Maybe not quite the end, the midpoint probably, to give it just like a little bit more. You are surprised by some of the decisions that characters make, and I do find them interesting, and I do feel like they are earned. But from a story standpoint, just like probably just like a little bit more probably needed.
Yeah, I think I agree with you that Ullom is probably not probably. I think he is the technically the strongest filmmaker of those three. I do think Parsons, like, swing with Backrooms, to me, it was bananas and weird in a way that like really created its own world in a way that just took me to a place that I was interested in going in a movie. But with both of them, we have to see what they do next and what they're capable of doing next.
Yeah, I know that Ullom is actually currently filming his next film. He may be in post by now, but he got a gig from this, I think, when it was on the festival circuit. So he's already on his way doing his next thing, and it's evident. You can watch him. Like I said, this guy knows how to make a movie, and bravo for him. I will point out one thing. I don't know if you have anything to add. This is just a superficial thing, but I found it hilarious generationally that like nobody uses their phone as a phone. Nobody even tries to make a goddamn phone call in this movie. Like, it's like they're using their phone for anything else. Like, we know it wouldn't work, right?
Yeah.
But they do so much with the phones. Nobody just tries to, like, we don't see them try to call mom.
Yeah, the phone is they need to rename it. Digital pocket device. I don't know. Personal pocket computer.
Yeah. PPC.
Well, should we go to the Patreon exclusive discussion of the ending?
Yeah, well, let's wrap up. Let's put a button on this, and we'll say that is it for this episode of the Filmographers podcast. Unless you are a Patreon subscriber, then stick around after we're done, because we're going to talk about the ending. But we thank you either way so much for joining us. Please, check out It Ends when it opens in theaters. It's August 21st, New York and LA. It's wide on the 28th. I don't know how wide, so it may not be playing by you, but try to seek it out. And if you can't, it's very much worth trying to find it on streaming. Support indie filmmaking.
Have a comment or suggestion? Want to share your thoughts on It Ends or make a special request to the Filmographers? We rarely get special requests. We want to hear from you. Send us your thoughts or just say hi at thefilmographerspodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you as always to our fantastic producer, Kevin Lau, who makes our podcast sound and look as good as it does. Able assistance provided by Zachary Wright. Our theme music was composed and played by Gompson, and our graphic design and merch is by Cosmo Graff.
Join us next time as we return to our good friend Billy Wilder and discuss his Technicolor sex romp, 1963's Irma la Douce.